What's up, everybody? This week we have done two mock off seasons at kind of the extremes. We've had the super continuity plan and the super blow it all up plan. Let's meet in the middle and let me tell you the off-season plan I would want the Vikings to take. And let's give it a shot here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Ooh-wee!
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, your pal, and the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL. You can find the show on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. And today on the show, we're doing one last mock off season before the real thing starts. This should be pretty fun. This is going to be the one I want. So before we did a mock off season, if you want to go listen on Monday, I did a mock off season focused on continuity. What if I'm not allowed to cut anybody? Can I fix the cap and still put together a reasonable team? I think I did okay. I still challenge anybody if they think they can do better. I would love to see it because I'm sure there's a better plan out there somewhere if you're just willing to work hard enough to find it. Yesterday, I did one that was all blow it up, where I required myself to trade every single contract over $10 million, and I actually got rid of more people and see if I can't start a rebuild that way and aim at something toward 2023. That one, of course, I mean, the team that I made is probably winning like 5 games, but you're setting up for 2023. I am going to do the one today that's mine, that I want to do. So no rules, no restrictions, no challenge type things. Let's just do a free agency, do a mock draft, and see what kind of team we come up with. Before I get into that, there is some news that I want to catch up on. So let's get into that real quick. For one, it happened on like Wednesday, so I'm way behind on this. But the Vikings hired a new head athletic trainer. His name is Conor Williams, and he was the director of like sports science, basically, for the Rams. So they kind of stole the sports science dude from McVay. Again, they're going to be taking a lot from the Rams and a lot from the Broncos. That's going to be how these staffs have kind of been built. I believe their staff is like super finalized now, though. But I think this offers a little bit of insight into letting Sugarman go. He was in the organization for 16 years, but we're bringing in our own guys. That's the way this goes. And if you're unfamiliar, the Rams have had crazy good injury luck for the last 4 years. Like, they might actually have a little bit of a special secret sauce, and sports science has been a big part of their approach. So just take that guy and say, do what you did there and do it here. And that's going to kind of be the approach. And I think, look, we talked a little bit when Sugarman got fired about him pressuring players into playing too soon with injury. Obviously, that's terrible. Unfortunately, I don't think firing him was about that. I think it was more about having somebody with an approach that agrees with the approach Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell want to take. And it's closer to a scheme fit thing than it is like a firing on merit, which might disappoint you if you think somebody should be fired for that kind of thing. So there's that. Also, Jeff Gladney got a not guilty verdict. That's something. So his deal, if you remember, he was cut from the team, domestic violence charges and stuff, felony case, really, really ugly details, went to trial, fully acquitted. Not guilty. I'm not going to get into the legalities of any of that, but it does reflect however you think that reflects on Rick Spielman, right? Because he cut the guy and then it turned out that there were no charges. The thing is, the personal conduct policy still reserves the right to suspend him anyways if they think he did it. But if something happened with the legality and there was some if you get off on a technicality, we're still going to punish you, that kind of thing. And I don't know the specifics of the Jeff Gladney case, and I don't really feel like spending a lot of time on it. Just thought I'd mention it. And the Vikings actually made their first roster transaction on Wednesday. T.Y. McGill signed. He was a practice squad guy, defensive tackle. He graced the field for a hot second. He got a little deal. He'll be able to try to make the team, but it's small time stuff. Otherwise, it's all just rumors and stuff swirling. And you know what? I'm not going to get bogged down in it. So let me get into this mock off season. So before I get into any of this, here is my goal. I want Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. That is everything that I'm doing is built around that. So keep that context in mind. I'm getting rid of Kirk Cousins. I'm trading him, and I want one of those quarterbacks from next year's draft class. Those quarterbacks look like they are going to be better than anything available right now. And I think the trap we always fall into is that we restrict ourselves to looking at the quarterbacks who are available right now. But if you are willing to wait a year for your quarterback, then do that. no price is too high for the right kind of quarterback. And I don't think you need to lose games on purpose to get him. I'm going to be willing to trade up, but that also means I need to build a team that's ready to not have a first round pick for a couple of years. And I'm going to have to build a team that's okay with that. And I'm going to have to be okay with that. And I will be. So let's get into it. Yesterday, we traded everybody, and that meant we went over trade values for everybody, which was part of that exercise, was deciding, how much do I think Kirk Cousins gets in a trade? And then which of those do I actually want to do? Truly, Kirk Cousins is the only one I want to do. Everybody else I want to keep because I'm a fan and I like them and they make me happy, and if they left, it would make me sad. But I got to be a little bit more objective than that. So here's what I did. I did do the Kirk Cousins trade, same one we did yesterday, where I convert $10 million of his salary to signing bonus to make him a more attractive asset. Traded that to the Steelers. So the Steelers get Kirk Cousins, $25 million. They can do whatever they want with him, and I get a first round pick. So I get first round 20th pick from the Steelers. And I eat $10 million in extra dead cap, which is going to all be part of the calculation. And then I traded Eric Kendricks. I'm sorry. I really am. Okay, I'm so sorry. I traded Eric Kendricks. I did it. In yesterday's simulation, I traded Kendricks for a 2023 second round pick. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to do a third rounder this year, which would be the 90th pick. I'm still trading him to Tennessee. So Tennessee gets Eric Kendricks. I get a third round pick. Pittsburgh gets Kirk Cousins. I get a first round pick. That's what we're doing. I'm not doing the rest, and I'm not going to do any restructures yet. I'll tell you about which ones of those I end up doing as we go. I do have 2 extensions that I want to talk about. I'm doing the Irv Smith one that I did yesterday. A lot of people did not like the Irv Smith one. Y'all, you didn't see him in camp. So I'm doing this based a lot on what I saw with my own 2 eyes at training camp last year, where he was outplaying Justin Jefferson. I cannot overstate how much he was balling, and he got hurt, and that sucks. And of course, I'm also assuming that there isn't complications with the knee injury or something, which I wouldn't know as a fan, but the team would know. So if barring anything like that, but I'm still doing it. Irv Smith is very good. He will totally live up to that contract. And if I sign him to that deal, mark my words, 2 years from now, it's going to look like a steal. That is a 4-year, $48 million contract. I am backloading it just a little bit. There's a lot of signing bonus stuff. I think his cap hit in the 2022 season would be a little under $5 million. But then the real money kicks in 2023. The other extension I'm doing is a small Anthony Barr extension. I'm actually doing this to save money. Because of weirdness of void years, we've explained this in the past. Right now, Anthony Barr is going to cost a little under $10 million against the Vikings salary cap. If you sign him to a 1-year extension with a $3 million base salary, which I think considering age and health is fair, then he actually only costs $8 million against the cap. You save about $1.5 million, and then he costs $5 million next year in dead cap, and he leaves. So I'm leaving that as a void year. I'm just doing 1 year so I can spread a little bit of money out, and I ended up needing an extra $2 million. So that's kind of the genesis of doing that deal. But you would have to decide to do it now, and I like that deal. I think Anthony Barr has 1 year of okay play left in him, but I don't want to pay more than what he already costs to do it. I'm only going to do that if it saves me cap space on the whole and allows me to defer more into 2023. So we made some cap space. We got rid of the quarterback. We got rid of one of the big contracts. We did a couple of, we're going to do some restructures as we go. Obviously, I did the obvious Danielle Hunter restructure, and that brings me under the cap. So there's nothing, I'm cap compliant, and I don't need to do anything until we actually need the money. So it's sign a free agent, do a restructure, and I'll tell you at the end what the restructures ended up being for me to make all that money. So we're going to get into that. But first things first, let me tell you about Grambling. Selection Sunday, this Sunday, then the tournament starts. Now, BetOnline has all sorts of fun games and pools and stuff you can go into, but if you just want to bet on individual games, you can do that. You can do their player props builder if you want to build a weird parlay, and you can always go to their live betting apparatus if you think, oh man, Gonzaga's going to make this comeback. You can do that too. So you can also bet on hockey. Baseball is actually going to start, so you can bet on baseball futures and stuff. This is gonna be a crazy week of sports. You can bet on soccer, tennis, whatever you want. Just head over to betonline.net where the game starts. Moving on with this little mock off-season sim that we are doing here, let's talk free agency now. So I got a lot of work to do, and I got a lot of cap space to do it. The goal here is that I do want to have $10 million left over at the end of all of this to sign draft class and have contingency. $10 million is kind of my rule of thumb. So we're going to do that. And I do think like there's just going to be a lot of 1-year deals this year, even though I don't want that. I don't want to just paper things over and then create more needs for next year. I don't think I'm going to have a choice. It's what players are going to want. So that said, I am going to sign a bridge quarterback. That can be anybody. I've done Tyrod Taylor in the past. I've talked about maybe Teddy Bridgewater making a return. That would make me very happy in my heart. I've talked, somebody asked about Ryan Fitzpatrick. It could kind of be any of these guys. And I'm kind of agnostic as to who that bridge quarterback would be. Like just, I don't know, somebody that's not going to be embarrassing. Pick your lot of 8 different dudes. This time I picked Marcus Mariota. He costs $8 million. The ideal in a bridge quarterback is somebody that could like theoretically play really well and actually earn the job. So somebody who maybe there's a little unknown, and if they prove something, wow, wait, could he actually be the quarterback? And look, Marcus Mariota has a lot of talent. Maybe he learned something being cut, going to play with the Raiders. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe not, and then that's fine, and we just have him for the year, and he's just a rental. But we're going to do that 1 year, $8 million. I'm also signing Brian Allen as a center. I've done Austin Blythe in the last 2 simulations. I'd be fine to do that again. I kind of just wanted to mix it up. But Brian Allen played really well as a backup center for the Rams. He's a pending free agent, and I don't think he's going to cost much because he was a backup. And so I said 1 year, $2 million. Maybe that's not fair, but I struggled to find like what his value would even be. Even PFF didn't really like bother to make one. And to me, that says that he's probably a smaller time guy. So he competes with Garrett Bradbury for the job. And I think if Brian Allen plays and plays well, then I'm extending him and it becomes a prove it year for him. And I'm okay with that. And if not, or if Bradbury proves it, then it's a prove it year for him or whatever. So you got 2 prove it years. And if neither of them work out, it's a need in 2023. I'm okay with that. I also, on the offensive line, I did get somebody long-term, Conor Williams. Now, this is my plan, and Conor Williams was my guy. You might remember Will Hernandez back in that year, that 2018 year when the Vikings got Mike Hughes, and Will Hernandez was like the premier interior offensive lineman in college, but he wasn't really a scheme fit, and people got really upset about that. I understood that, and I wasn't all that high on Will Hernandez because of it, and I was like, okay, I get it, that you're not going to like, what made him good in college won't make him good here, like won't happen here. And you're not going to ask him to do the same things and to change the whole scheme. You'd kind of have to overhaul everything. And why would you do that? But I was really into Conor Williams out of Texas. And when he went to the Cowboys and had a good career, that, you were like, man, they took Mike Hughes over Will Hernandez. I was like, man, they took Mike Hughes over Conor Williams. That was my shadow pick. So he's available. I'm going to go get him. 3 years, $20 million is the number. I'm just doing all of these on PFF's free agency list. If you want to keep up and you have a PFF subscription, go do that. But don't bog yourself down too much in the actual numbers. Trust me, the math works out, and at the end we end up with $10 million in cap space and $34 million next year. So, and we've paid off a bunch of debts. So 3-year deal for Conor Williams, and that is all I'm going to do on offense in free agency. But we fixed the offensive line. We didn't get rid of Adam Thielen. We still have him for a year, and we got Marcus Mariota. I also kept CJ Ham because you know what? I like him. And I like having a fullback. I'm just a fan of it, so whatever. If you need some extra cap space, though, that could be a place to look. You could look at like Armon Watts or somebody like that, too. There's definitely a lot more cap that could be created, and I just kind of ended up not needing to. On the defensive side of the ball, I went for something that I did in the continuity mock offseason. I'm going back to that, which is a backloaded 3-year, $42 million deal for Hassan Reddick. I like Hassan Reddick a lot, and that might not be as exciting a name to you, but he's got exactly the versatility that I want. And I think I put him in the actual image that, I'm sorry, by the way, I forgot to put it up in yesterday's episode on YouTube. I had a little visual, but this is also made to be a podcast and to be listened. So I do want to make sure that people can follow without it. But I will put, if I remember this time, I will put the roster up on YouTube for this whole thing. But I did post that on Twitter, and to do that, I have to decide what position I'm going to list Hassan Reddick as. And I want you to know, I do not care. He could be an end, he could be a Sam linebacker, he could be a Jack linebacker, he could be a hybrid something. He's just a talented dude that can move around the formation, and when I'm trying to do varied fronts, varied players are good. 3 years, $42 million, backloaded a little bit. so that I could get it going. And I feel really excited about that. I like Hassan Reddick a lot. I also got Ahkello Witherspoon, the cornerback, for a $4 million 1-year deal. That's another 1-year guy that's going to go, but he's bridging me over well. I know I'm going to have to draft a lot of corners, and I know those young guys are going to have to learn under somebody, so I went with Witherspoon. This could be Patrick Peterson if you prefer. I went with Witherspoon just to mix things up. And then I did Bryce Callahan, who I've done before, nickel in a Fangio scheme, and he's been that forever. Been that with the Bears, been that with the Broncos. 2 years, $10 million. And then the last one is another one I'm stealing from the Broncos, Josie Jewell. He is a 1-year, $6 million deal, but to get this to fit, because this would make me have $8 million left in cap space. So that doesn't count. That doesn't fit. That's not good enough. I need $10 million to sign the draft class and stuff. So to make it fit, I actually signed him to a 1-year deal with 1 void year and put $2 million in that void year. So he costs $4 million this year, and then next year he'll leave with a $2 million dead cap hit. So again, I reiterate, don't worry so much about trying to keep track of all the numbers. Just know those are the players that I got. Marcus Mariota, Brian Allen at center, Conor Williams at guard, Hassan Reddick as, versatile defender guy, Ahkello Witherspoon as a corner, Bryce Callahan as a corner, and Josie Jewell, who plays middle linebacker. He would kind of be my Kendricks replacement. And the idea here, but behind trading Kendricks and replacing him with a kind of the nobody, is that happens in a lot of these Fangio schemes. And I don't really get it, because that Mike job being that one roving linebacker in the middle of the field seems like kind of a hard job. But a lot of these Fangio schemes just like put an undrafted free agent there and it's fine. So I'm kind of just cheaping out, and that's the whole deal. I don't love it. I don't want to do it, but I'm trying my best to start thinking like a Fangio scheme and doing what other Fangio schemes have done. And I think I'm just kind of I'm just trusting that that's a reasonable thing to do. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, and then trying to use the cap savings to help set up 2023, basically, because the move from Kendricks to Josie Jewell is actually kind of neutral cap wise because of all the dead cap that you get by trading Kendricks, but it sets up future years really well. So that's kind of what we're doing there. That guy could be Thielen instead of Kendricks if you wanted. I think I would rather keep Thielen than Kendricks right now, mostly because of that nature of Fangio schemes. So to make all this fit, I did have to do 2 restructures, Brian O'Neill and Dalvin Cook. I did the maximum restructures, so I took all their base salary, turned it into signing bonus, kicked all that cap down the road, and I'm absolutely fine with doing that. Look, I will never quit Dalvin Cook. Send me all the articles about running back value you want. I'm not going to do it. And Brian O'Neill, I think is like the cornerstone of cornerstone players. There's no way that you're ever going to feel like you want to get rid of him. So I think you can safely turn his contract into a more married one. So there's your free agency. We still got a lot of problems, and especially a lot of future problems. I've got still Thielen. I've still got Harrison Smith. I need succession plans for those guys, not to mention all the holes on the roster itself. But before we get into that, I am going to do a mock draft. Let me tell you about the best tasting protein bar on the planet. It is Built Bar, covered in 100% chocolate, and my favorite thing from Built Bar is Built Puffs. They are covered in 100% chocolate. They're absolutely delicious, and honestly, it's better than the originals. You can get the original flavors if you want. Caramel, chocolate orange, chocolate raspberry, chocolate peanut butter is a big one for me. There's a cookies and cream one. Go get those. But really, Built Puffs is where it's at for me, because it tastes like marshmallows, and it's a protein bar. Like, it's not a candy bar with 30 grams of sugar and 300 calories. Try like 130 calories, like 4 grams of sugar in this bad boy, and yet it tastes like marshmallow covered in chocolate. I have no idea how they did it. Some marvel of science, and it's fantastic. It'll satisfy that late night craving for you without knocking you off the wagon. So head on over to built.com and enter promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you can get 15% off of your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 at built.com. So let's do a mock draft here. This is not a mock draft Monday. We're not beholden to all of these rules, but let's do this. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I did great on this draft, and I kind of want to take another crack at it. And I think for Mock Draft Monday itself, I think that's what I'm going to do, because I'm not that happy with this. I'm still going to share it with you. That's part of doing a bunch of mock drafts over time, is that some of them are bad, and you look at why they're bad, and you learn about the board that way. So we're going to take a lesson from it. I'll get to that in a second. But first, my first pick is up, the Vikings natural first rounder at 1-12. We need a corner really bad. And I actually double dip on corners in this draft. I've got Ahkello Witherspoon on a 1-year deal, and Cameron Dantzler and Bryce Callahan on a 2-year deal. I've got really, really rough spot at corner. So I went for Derek Stingley. Andrew Booth and Sauce Gardner were already off the board, so it wasn't even really a choice between like the big three or whatever. So I couldn't really even engage in that. So it just was by default Derek Stingley. Look, he's a dog and he can play man, and that's what I need. So easy enough there. And then at 120, I did something that I came to regret. I traded back. I loved the idea of trading back in general, and the value was there, which is why I did it. But on this board, it's kind of screwed me. Chris Olave was on the board. He would have been my pick. And I thought, I'll go back and I'll just get a different wide receiver, see if I can't get somebody good. I ended up getting trading back 10 spots with Kansas City. So I went back to the 30th pick and I picked up an extra second rounder to do it. And I thought that was definitely worth it. Value-wise it is. On this board, I kind of got punished. So I think what I'm learning is if you're going to trade back from 12, don't trade past like 22. That's the lesson that I'm getting on this particular board. I also gave up a 7th round pick. We aren't even going that deep in the draft. I'm only doing 3 rounds here. So I gave up pick number 20 and a 7th for pick number 30 and a 2nd. That's how it worked. But I lost access to a bunch of my favorites in this draft already. And I ended up having to take Treylon Burks out of Arkansas, who had a really bad combine, and he's kind of a weird player. I still think he's good. Like, there is something that Kwesi said about combine results that's like, look, this is only one data point. You know, they run once. It shouldn't supersede. It shouldn't overwrite like 3 years of watching the dude run fast, and then he didn't run fast today. Like, you can't be accidentally fast, and you probably have a lot of chip data, especially if it's a Power 5 school. So I don't mind the combine like too much. He ran like a 4.55. That's not terrible. And he's big and he's physical, and his speed was never really going to be his game. He was always just faster on tape than he looked. And looking fast, despite not being physically fast, can also be a skill. It can be like that can be a technique thing, or a way that you release off the line, or a way that you control your acceleration, where to our minds it quote unquote looks fast, and our minds are picking up on something that's good and repeatable and helps you get separation that then doesn't show up in a 40 time. So I don't mind going with Treylon Burks here. I would have very much rather had Chris Olave, and the difference there felt like I'm getting punished a little bit. But for that difference, for the difference between Olave and Burks, I get an extra second rounder, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first, the natural second rounder. Pick 2, number 46. The board really started to dry up. And in previous drafts, by about the second round, I usually feel like, man, there's a lot of good players on the board, blah, blah, blah. I really don't feel that way yet. I also haven't looked at enough. So subject to change. But for now, I took Arnold Ebiketie, the Penn State edge. He's like a powerful kind of edge setter. He'd be a little bit more of a 4 technique, 4-eye type, kind of line up inside the tackle and be a physical presence. He's not as versatile as I want for all my front defenders, all my front 7 defenders here. But that's okay. You kind of would like put him at like a base end, and then Danielle Hunter would line up out wide, or Hassan Reddick would then play off the ball. And it would definitely be enough, a part of enough cool packages that it'd be worth a second rounder. But he's like a power guy, like a strongman guy, as an edge defender. I can definitely work with that. And then I get to pick number 62, which is the pick I got in my trade back. I didn't love at all. Anybody there? I really didn't like the board. There's a lot of dudes I did not like at that pick. I ended up going with Tariq Woolen out of UTSA, another cornerback. He is a wide receiver convert. He's super raw, super traitsy. Think Noah Igbenogany, if you remember that from a couple years ago. And all the athleticism in the world. He's like 6'4". He's fast. He's rangy and all that stuff. He's just raw. He's just only been playing the position for a couple of years, and so you have to teach him. I don't love taking on that project here. I don't love taking on a guy to do the position for the 3rd year who's going to do the position. That sounds like the Chaz Surratt mistake. And you can tell that I'm starting to get like dissatisfied with this draft, which is kind of why I want to do it again on Mock Draft Monday and see if I can't do better. Anyways, moving on, pick number 77, our raw 3rd rounder, our natural 3rd rounder. I took a physical box safety. Maybe I'd even try to move him to like a will coverage-ish linebacker named Jalen Peter, out of Baylor. He is a downhill type safety, like a true box hard hitting type safety. And I think that can work. There's a lot of downhill stuff that you have to do in a Vic Fangio scheme. He just doesn't recognize coverage or route concepts all that well. yet, and he has to learn that to be able to play like robber zones and, be a poach defender and make those sorts of cerebral plays where you have to know what's going on, and you have to know what's going on confidently enough to go jump the route, and you have to be right about that, because if you jump a route and you're wrong, it's a touchdown. And that would take a while, which is, I think, why he's in the third round here. But otherwise, he's a good, box safety. And hey, move him to linebacker. And then, he's good in the run. He can shed blocks against guys that are bigger than him. And that's good linebacker stuff. Like, I don't mind moving into linebacker or even considering that or whatever. Give it a try. For now, he'll compete with Cameron Bynum for the safety spot opposite Harrison Smith. And then at pick 90, this is my Eric Kendricks pick. I took Channing Tyndall, who is a coverage linebacker, kind of heady guy out of Georgia. One of those coverage-esque linebackers who can also help maybe compete for that Mike spot and be eventually the successor to Eric Kendricks, who I did have to trade away in this one. So, look, I went into this with 2 first-rounders, 2 third-rounders, and a second-rounder. I'm not going to do all of day 3. But I went into it with that, and I feel like I botched it. I don't feel very good about this draft. But here's the roster that I ended up with. At quarterback, I've got Marcus Mariota. I've got Dalvin Cook and CJ Ham as the running backs like normal. I have KJ Osborne and Treylon Burks kind of competing for wide receiver reps. You've got Thielen and Jefferson still hanging out. Of course, however much you get left of Thielen. I've got Akila Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen probably competing for a cornerback spot. I don't think Tariq Woolen's going to get there, but, if he develops faster than you think, he's got his red shirt year behind Akila Witherspoon, and you hope by next year he takes over. Got Bryce Callahan as your nickel. That's great. And then Derek Stingley and Cam Dantzler kind of rotating in and out as you want him to. Kept Danielle Hunter. I kept Michael Pierce. I kept Dalvin Tomlinson, so your front's doing pretty good. And then I've got Hassan Reddick and Arnold Ebiketie kind of rotating in and out. If I need a little more coverage and a little more speed, I go with Reddick. If I need a little more power, I go with Ebiketie. That's great. I did keep Anthony Barr. Guess he can play Sam right now, but mostly it was a cap move. I've got Josie Jewell and Channing Tyndall as my starting linebackers with Troy Dye and Chaz Surratt, I guess, competing for those jobs. They're more than welcome to. And Jalen Peter and Cameron Bynum competing at safety. And you got Harrison Smith. So, at offensive line, totally forgot. Christian Darrisaw and Ezra Cleveland. And then at center, I have a battle between Brian Allen and Garrett Bradbury. I'd expect Brian Allen to win it, but you might as well let the other guy try. Conor Williams is my right guard now of the future, and I'm really excited about that. And then Brian O'Neill next to him. And headed into 2023, I'm doing the same thing that I did last time, which is go for Bryce Young, go for CJ Stroud. Whichever one of those guys you like more, or whatever quarterback you're really in love with in the 2023 class. And that means, look, if this roster accidentally wins 7 games and you end up drafting 13th, I don't care. Package another first-round pick. Trade up. Do it. Just like, I would be fully 1,000,000% aggressive, and I would do whatever it takes. I'm not letting a factor of luck mean I don't actually get a quarterback. I am trading up and getting the guy. I'm doing Rams move up for Jared Goff kind of move. That's what I want. And that's what I feel like is the move at quarterback. If you get rid of Kirk Cousins, pick a quarterback that you want. Don't restrict yourselves to guys that happen to be available right now. Pick the quarterback that you want and then do everything you can to get him. Now I've got a good stable of pass rushers and a fixed offensive line. He's ready to come in. And if Marcus Mariota wins 7 games, I'll trade up. And if he only wins 4 games, I'm trading up and I just have to pay less and whatever. Pick your quarterback and go get him and set up every other move around getting him. And if that means waiting a year, it means waiting a year. We're going to be glad we did it. So look, tampering's on Monday. We'll do a mock draft on Monday morning before tampering starts. But otherwise, we're probably going to have some news to cover. So bless you in the weekend. Enjoy Selection Sunday and all that stuff, or whatever else you're doing in sports. Enjoy baseball free agency. It's going to be a cool week next week. I'm excited to cover it with you here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skol.